I came across a video of the hospice nurse that says that she believes that she saw the Grim Reaper in her patient's room. The very next day, that patient ended up passing away. This reminded me of my own Grim Reaper story. I have multiple because I worked in a trauma center for 6, maybe 7 years overnight. So we had a lot of people coming in that were probably not going to make it. And I saw a lot of craziness, just being super sensitive. One of the ones that really stands out to me the most is this girl that came in as a trauma. She actually had OD'd and they were working on bringing her back. When they finally did bring her back, she was screaming, saying that, there's something in the room that kept staring at her and that she was terrified. Being that she had just come back, being OD'd, everyone just assumed that she was hallucinating, but I could see exactly what she was talking about. What she was talking about looked like this, and it was sitting there laughing and mocking her, waiting for her, like it wanted to take her. They ended up having to sedate her and tie her down to the bed because she wouldn't stop screaming about how she did not want to go with this thing. The next day, when I came back in for my shifts, I found out that she had actually passed away. That encounter with the Grim Reaper had to do with this elderly lady that was brought in from one of the senior citizen homes. She actually had passed away right before I started my shift, so they brought her in probably around 9:45 p.m. I started my shift at 10:00 p.m. So when I came in, she had already passed. I had no idea that she had passed away. Typically, when a patient passes away in the ER, they put a sign on the front door. But since she had just passed away, there wasn't anything there. And when I logged in and noticed that her room needed to be done, like I work in registration, I saw that her room needed to be registered. I just grabbed my computer and went straight to her room. I walked into the scariest thing that I had ever seen. If you have ever seen the movie The Ring, and you remember how the people's faces get whenever they see the girl, I forgot her name, the girl with the long hair. That's exactly what this lady's face looked like terrified. That of course startled me, and I looked over to my right, and that's when I see this giant black thing with a hood hunched over her, like just there. I literally backtracked out of the room and I shut the curtains, and I was so shaken up, like I didn't even know how to react. I walked over to one of my coworkers and I'm like, what happened? And they're like, oh no, I can't believe you walked into that room. She actually just passed away, and I'm just in shock. And I stayed in shock for the rest of the night. I felt like the Grim Reaper that was in there, because there's multiple. The Grim Reaper that was in there saw me, and I wasn't supposed to see. So this story is about Danielle, and we've talked about Danielle before, and I think that Danielle has a sex sense, 100%. And in this story, Danielle was actually at her grandma's house, and her grandma actually lived on that 78 acres of land that we talked about in my other story. One night, Danielle was getting ready for bed around 8 o'clock. She said she was a sleepy kid and she liked to go to bed early. So after Danielle is done putting her pajamas on, she actually goes into the living room, and there's actually a bird cage in the living room. She said she was looking at the bird cage when all of a sudden she looks over, and in the corner of her eye, she sees a dark shadow standing in the corner of the room. Her grandma had an African parrot who loved to talk, and she said that it sounded like it was talking. She said usually he talks to himself because he's a bird, but this time it sounded like he was actually talking to someone else, almost have a conversation with a person who wasn't really there. It really freaked her out. She goes to her grandma and she tells her grandma what she saw, and her grandma's like, listen, it's probably nothing. He's a bird. So as Danielle likes to do, it seems, she brushed it off and then goes to bed. And in the middle of the night, she wakes up at about 1 o'clock in the morning. And She can't move, but she knows that she's awake. She can move her eyes, but nothing else. She said that she was a little confused, and she's looking around the room, and she sees that it's really dark, but she notices that there's a part of the room that is extra dark. She starts to get really freaked out that she can't move, and she's like, what is going on? When all of a sudden, she looks over, and she sees a figure of a tall man, like 15 feet tall, she says. He's wearing a black trench coat and a top hat. Man then slowly starts walking over towards her, and he is tall. Oh, he is a skinny, tall man walking towards Danielle. She can't move, she can't scream, she can't do anything. Then leans over and he whispers in her ear. And she said it was in a voice that she had never heard before, like the weirdest sounding voice she had ever heard. Surprisingly, he whispers in her ear and says, everything is going to be okay. Don't be scared. Remember the date, September 14th. She said that that day was actually September 13th. The next day would be September 14th. He then just disappears, and Danielle tries her hardest to fall back asleep. This girl has got some guts, man. She can't really fall back asleep, but she does get a couple hours of sleep. And the next morning, she wakes up and she tells her grandma, I just want to stop and say that I personally believe that she had a sleep paralysis moment. What happens next really freaks me out because it makes me think that sleep paralysis is real. I keep getting these stories of the sleep paralysis turning into reality. But I digress. The next day, her mom comes and picks her up, and she goes home, and what does she do? She wants to go play out in the tree. So she goes outside and she plays in her tree. She's sitting on one of the branches on the tree, when all of a sudden she gets this really creepy feeling like something is wrong. All of a sudden, it feels like the branch is giving out a little bit underneath her. She said to keep in mind that this branch was huge, and she was only like 75 pounds at the time. So there was no way that she should have been falling down on this branch. All of a sudden, she feels a hand on her back, and she feels a little push, and then boom, a harder push, and she falls to the ground. Her mom was actually outside. She saw this happen, and she called an ambulance. Danielle ended up breaking her surgery, so Danielle is in the hospital, and they have to give her, in order to put her under, in order to operate on her shoulder. She said that she was really scared, but she was in the hospital and she felt like she was out. And all of a sudden she looks in the corner of the room, and who does she see? She sees that man again. She calls him the Hat Man. And then she feels like someone is holding her hand, and she looks over, and it's the Hat Man holding her hand. And in that same voice, he whispers again, everything is going to be okay. You are okay. She obviously ended up being okay, but Danielle said that this was not the last time that she saw the Hat Man. She actually saw him multiple times, and every single time she would see the Hat Man, something terrible would happen, like the next day. For instance, she saw him out of the corner of her eye one day, and the next day, her family dog that they had had for a really long time passed away. And then another time, she saw him out of the corner of her eye. Her aunt passed away the next day. So this story sounds creepy to me because of the way that he looks, and I'm a little confused by that. This is obviously a good spirit, we hope, but it sounds like it's some type of like Grim Reaper or something. If you guys have any thoughts on this, please drop in the comments. My next story is going to be pretty scary. Ellie told me this happened a month ago, and it still keeps her up at night. She recently started working at a hospital on overnight shifts after college, and was always told that she would see strange things. But she never once thought that she would be seeing the Grim Reaper. So before she actually confirmed that it was him, Haley said she would always see black figures in the hallways of the hospital. Her first encounter was when she was working at the desk at her hospital. And at around 1:30 a.m., she told me she felt a cold, chilling breeze run down her body. She told me this breeze felt as if there was a window nearby and someone opened it up all the way. She told me this feeling made her dizzy, and because no one else was around, she couldn't find out if she was tripping or not. Not sad until Haley told me at one point she looked to her left and right down the hallway was where she saw a tall black figure glide past into a room, disappearing. She told me something and told her not to get up and go in that room. Instead, she sat there, staring down that hallway, not breaking eye contact with the light that was shining above, waiting for the figure to come back out. But the thing is, it didn't. The next day, Haley told me when she got to work, she was alerted by the nurses that one of the patients passed away. Come to find out, it was the same room that she saw the figure glide into. When she was told this information, Haley said she knew for a fact that she saw the Grim Reaper. Now, here's where things got crazy for her. Haley told me after that day, whenever she worked the night shifts, she would always be on alert, waiting for that black figure because she wanted to get up and go in the room the same time that it was, just to see what was going on. Days passed, and there was no sight of this figure until one night, Haley told me she was on her way home from work, and things were very strange for her. As she was stopped at a red light and no one else was on the road with her, she looked at her side mirror and saw something in the distance, a tall, black figure that looked nothing like a human. It was, however, similar to the same figure that she saw at the hospital. Haley told me this freaked her out because if this was the Grim Reaper, was he indicating that it was her time to go? Haley told me as soon as the light turned green, she instantly sped away. As she was now approaching her neighborhood, Haley told me she looked at her side mirror once again and saw the same tall black figure standing in the middle of the road. This freaked her out so much that she started screaming, "Get away," as if it would be able to hear her. Haley told me she pulled into her house, ran inside, locked the doors, and started praying. She told me she was shaking out of fear because why was it following her, and why won't it stop? Fast forward, Haley told me the rest of the day she was forcing herself to stay awake because God forbid she falls asleep and then never wakes up. The thought of that just made her feel sick to the stomach. Fast forward again. It was around 2:30 a.m. Haley had no work that night, and she decided to binge her favorite TV show, The Vampire Diaries, to keep herself awake. Haley told me one second she was watching the show, and the next she was knocked out. Her body couldn't keep her awake. She told me it happened so fast, but she was eventually awoken about an hour later. Haley told me when she opened her eyes, she could feel a sense of dread overtaking the room. She could feel that someone or something was in the room, and her anxiety skyrocketed. She told me even with her lights off, she was able to see just a little bit of light shining through her room. And that's when she saw it, the tall black figure, or the Grim Reaper, standing in the middle of her room. She said it had no face, but it was tall and skinny, and its presence filled the whole room with the cold breeze that had her shivering. She told me she was frozen with fear and couldn't move at all, like her last encounter with it. She watched as it stood there looking. Haley told me she started to feel tears running down her face because she knew that this time she was going to die. Haley told me she accepted whatever was coming next when she saw this figure raise its arms to its chest, and then she suddenly felt extremely tired. All she remembers next is her eyes becoming heavy, and she instantly fell asleep. Haley told me it was complete darkness, no dreams, nothing. But what was a 6-hour sleep felt like a second because when she woke up, her heart was pounding. She grabbed her chest and realized that she wasn't dead. The Grim Reaper did not get her. Haley told me she was relieved and maybe thought that this whole entire time her mind was playing tricks on her because she worked so much at work and just needed to sleep until she checked her phone. Her phone was blowing up with messages and calls from her relatives. Haley told me her grandma passed away last night. It's the same exact night she saw this black figure, or the Grim Reaper, following her around, appearing in her room. This news, of course, shocked her, But it made her realize that maybe the Grim Reaper was trying to warn her, tell her that she shouldn't fear him. She also took this as a sign to cherish your life and always check up on your loved ones. Fast forward, Haley is still working at the hospital and will sometimes see a black figure wander through the hallway. Although it's a sad sight to see, Haley likes to think that the Grim Reaper is there to comfort them in their final moments and show them that someone is there to help them cross over.